Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed chapter 1118. I heard this one was pretty controversial in terms of the story. It makes me glad that in my videos, I only have to give an opinion on the story when I feel like it. I'm just here to talk about paneling, and you're just here to hear about it. And chapter 1118 is full of interesting bits of paneling to dig into, from great uses of panel size to a showcase of different kinds of page-turn cliffhangers. So let's get right into it. The chapter opens with our big boy, the Iron Giant, falling. The paneling emphasizes its size, giving it huge panels while the puny marines are cramped in a small one. The dark shading makes it feel a little more solid, and thus a little more heavy than everything around it. The two panels have an upward energy, in the shape of the composition and the direction the marines are looking. So when the Iron Giant falls with a composition that points downward, the impact feels greater. The use of a large panel to show a huge impact should go without saying. The downward energy continues into the next two panels, and the sense of the Iron Giant sinking is enhanced by the panel being at the bottom of the page. But that effect might be clearer on the next page, where the eye moving downward matches the robot's descent. The zoom out makes it feel like it's getting further and further away, lost in the depths. Now let's skip ahead a good chunk and talk about when Mars attacks the ship. That starts with the cliffhanger panel, where the distance of the shot gives it a feeling of indefiniteness. Like Mars is a blur in the distance, making us want to look closer by turning the page. A shot with the exact same framing that took up more of the page couldn't have the same effect, because Mars would be visible in more detail. So we turn the page and see him, and I love the subtle paneling behind these two seemingly ordinary panels. The narrow horizontal shape gives a sense of speed to the left, which matches his motion. But deeper than that, we have a lot of space to the left of him in the first panel, space which the eye crosses to reach the close-up. This gives the feeling of moving to the left, creating the illusion of motion with surprisingly little. The secret to page-turn cliffhangers is to withhold information. The one we just discussed used a distant shot, the details blurry, a cliffhanger of resolution. This next one uses the uncertain outcome of the giants trying to block the flames, a cliffhanger of time, of what will happen next. And on the page after that, we use a cliffhanger of framing, with a tight shot of Frankie and nothing else around him. This is something we talked about a lot last week. When you end on a tight shot, you raise the question of what's outside the shot. This is particularly fitting when the thing that comes next, an earthquake, is inherently large and expansive. The contrast between the small cliffhanger panel and the large earthquake panel makes it feel bigger. Or to put it another way, an earthquake is always going to get a big panel, but you can go the extra mile by contrasting it with the small panel before it. I love the way the earthquake is presented. It starts simple, with varied angles between all of the ships, but it gets crazy with the rest of the page. It looks like a chaotic mess of panels, and it is, because it's expressing how an earthquake feels. There's juxtaposed angles for every panel, inside and out. The tight shots make it hard to get your bearings, like everything is shaking around you. Luffy abruptly transforms because in the chaos, no one has their eye on him. How a trick like this works depends on the context. If this was from a single character's perspective, we might do the messy, confusing panels first, before opening up to a shot of the earthquake. But because there's a large cast reacting to it, it wouldn't be as clear if we started there, so we put the big panel first, to make it clear how we should read the panels after. Reading all of these small, tight, cramped panels just makes you want a big panel, as a release from all the tension. And so we go to the final page, to see something that definitely deserved a big panel. Coming off of the Kuma panels, I like how Bonnie starts with an upward flow, drawing us up to her fist, that stands out with its thick lines. The eye follows the path of a fist pumping upward. It's a joyful motion. From there, the eye flows diagonally with Luffy, his torso also pointing us toward the next panels. The panel as a whole is composed around lines shooting upward and outward, bursting out like a sunrise. There's a great flow of concepts through the rest of the page. We zoom out from Luffy and Bonnie transformed into how those around them react. From that outside perspective, we can check in on Mars as he watches them, and go into a close-up on him. That lets us move from one close-up to another, and then from there to a close-up of Bonnie. And from Bonnie we go to the other Gorosei as they sense something wrong, which is implied to be that Bonnie has transformed as well. Despite covering a bunch of different subjects, there's no point where it asks us to make a jarring, confusing jump. Except at the end, when we return to where we began, with the Iron Giant. This one is more of a leap, specifically to make it feel forgotten and ignored, and it's at the bottom of a stack of panels to once again emphasize the depth it's sunk to. There's one last thing we have to talk about, and it's contrast. because Oda is doing something new with it here. There's still the usual uses, to draw the eye and make things stand out, like the giants' shields or the harsh shadowing on the ship, which both pull the eye diagonally and make the flames stand out more. But this chapter also marks a shift in how Oda draws the Gorosei. They're usually black and white, but this chapter, almost every shot of them is black and gray. It makes them feel darker and more evil. There's a ton of it on the final page in particular, and there you can see how it gives them contrast with Luffy and Bonnie in their Nika forms. It perfectly represents their opposing sides. Maybe it's a trend, or maybe it's just something Oda did for this chapter. Either way, it makes the transformation hit even harder. If you hate that Bonnie can turn into Nika, you should like, comment, and subscribe. If you love that Bonnie can turn into Nika, you should also like, comment, and subscribe. If you want my thoughts on the rest of the chapter, do the Patreon or the membership. Hope you enjoyed the video. See ya!